Did you know that quilting the same quilting design in different sizes can add quite the impact to your quilts? Stick around and I'll show you how. Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters from quiltingismytherapy.com, and welcome to the next video in the Negative Spaces Free Motion Challenge video series. Throughout this quilting along, I'm showing you some of my favorite techniques for quilting background areas of our quilts. And if you haven't watched the previous videos in the series, be sure to check those out. In this video, I'm going to show you how playing around with the scale or size of a design can really help draw your eye to particular areas of your quilts. Not only is this technique a lot of fun to quilt, it can be used with all sorts of quilting designs, making it really versatile. We'll talk about using a gradual change of scale to draw attention to an area of your quilt, but we'll also see how you can use intentional placement of bigger designs to help frame or highlight those blocks. So let's get to it. This technique is not only fun, it's also easy to do. So looking at my area, I'm going to first use a marking tool to divide it up into different sections. The sections that you mark out can be any size or any shape. But just remember, the more sections you have, the more differently sized designs you'll have to quilt. So I'm just going to start by kind of roughly marking a couple of these sections. Then I'm going to designate a size of the design in each of the sections. For instance, the smallest design is going to go around the element I want to show off, and then they get a little bit bigger as we go out. Marking those sections just help keep me on track, especially if I'm doing this over a larger area. Once I have that marked out, it's time to start quilting. Now, when I talk about the scale of a design, I'm really just talking about the distance between the lines. For a denser design, I'm going to quilt the design so the lines are closer together, and for a less dense, they're going to be further apart. This technique works with almost any design, and for this one, I'm going to do a wavy kind of swirl. For that wavy swirl, I'm going to quilt a line that curls in, and I'm going to echo my way back out with a wavy line. And then to build it up, I'm going to add a couple more wavy echoes. Once I'm ready to branch off into the next one, I'm going to quilt another swirl and then add those wavy echo lines. Since this is the most densely quilted section, I'm quilting my lines so they're about 1/4 inch apart, kind of using that as a gauge to help keep them somewhat consistent. Just like I would do with any other filler design, I'm making sure that I fill in that whole area as much as possible. I'm using echoing to kind of help maneuver me around the area, and I'm just trusting that once I'm done and it's all filled in, it's going to look great. But as I start to cross into the next section, I'm just going to switch to quilting that design a little bit bigger by spreading the lines out just a little bit more. Try not to worry about this part. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just kind of going for a little bit bigger than the previously quilted one. And then as I continue working my way around, I might be jumping back and forth in between those sections, and that's fine. I'm just going to keep track of the size I should be quilting that section and filling it in. Now, learning how to quilt a design in different sizes can take a little bit of practice, and that's something that will definitely work itself out the more you quilt. But I do have a couple tips that might help make it a little bit easier. First, like I've already said, don't stress out too much about those lines. As I cross over one, I'm going to start quilting it the next size. That means I'm not going to worry about cutting off a swirl if it kind of ventures across that line. I'm just going to continue that design and then move on. And as I cross into the next section, I'm just going to start quilting it that next bigger size by spreading out the lines about 1/2 inch or so, quilting that same swirl and wavy line echoes to give it that beautiful look. Another thing you can do to help keep you right on track with the size of the designs is to make a little key to keep next to you. For instance, drawing out the different sizes of the design that you want to use on a piece of paper. Keep it close by so you can kind of refer to it as you're quilting. Sometimes just having that visual will help keep you on the right track. Now For this section, I chose the wavy swirl design because it goes together a little bit easier and it has a beautiful texture. But of course, you could do this technique with any quilting design. Pebbles, flowers, swirls, leaves, paisleys, really it's up to you and what you feel like quilting. When you start by quilting the smallest size first, it feels like it's going to take forever. But as you get to the sections with the bigger sizes, it goes together much more quickly. And if you get to a portion where you can't fit a whole swirl, just quilt some wavy lines and fill in that unquilted area. Then you can move on and continue quilting. Another way to help you keep that sizing consistent is to maybe compare it to something in real life. For instance, coins. I can quilt my pebbles so that they're quarter shaped and dime shaped. Since we already kind of know what size those are, it'll give us a real life example to compare it to. And if you're still trying to get those sizes down and it's still giving you trouble, take your marking pen and actually mark out the different sizes right on your quilt. I'm not talking about marking out all the quilting, just having it right there in each section will help give you a really close visual of what it's supposed to look like. One thing that will really help you keep your quilting on track is to keep your hands on either side of your needle. This is where you have the most control. As I start quilting, sometimes I find that my arms kind of are over here or maybe up here. I need to make sure that I'm stopping, repositioning my hands, and moving on. That's gonna let me have the most control as I work through the design, especially if I'm in the middle of the quilt and it's getting kind of heavy to push around. I love these wavy swirls because they're so forgiving. If I have any gaps in between them or if I have an area to fill in, I can just quilt some of those wavy lines and continue on. I love how it has a nice kind of abstract texture and it can kind of look like flowers depending on the fabric that you use it on. And once that area is all filled in, you can see that gradual change in density. It helps draw your attention to those certain points of the quilt, but makes it nice and fast to quilt in the rest of it. And once those marked lines are removed, all you're gonna see is that beautiful gradual change in density. I just love how you can take that same design, quilt it over the whole area, and by simply changing the size of it, you get that cool effect in the background. You can also use the same technique to transition between several different designs. And just like all the techniques we've learned in this video series, you can make it as complex or as simple as you'd like. And I'm going to show you how to do that on the long arm quilting machine. Start by dividing the area up into different sections. The more sections you add, the more interest and designs you'll have in the background. Then assign a different design to each section. For instance, swirls in one, then swirls and pebbles in the next, and then maybe pebbles in the third one, and so on. Then I'm going to start quilting. I'm going to begin by quilting pebbles in the first section, and then as I cross into the next, I'm going to start quilting swirls and pebbles. Now, just like we saw on the sewing machine, don't stress out too much about the lines. Just focus on filling in that area as much as possible, knowing that once we remove the lines, you're not even going to know where they were at. And you can use almost any quilting design with this technique. It really just depends on what you prefer. Since most quilting designs can be easily combined with others, it's as simple as matching them up. And then once you're finished and you remove those marked lines, all you're gonna see is this beautiful texture in the background that transitions from one to the next and to the next. Not only does it look amazing, but it's also fun to quilt so many different designs. Now in this section, I marked the lines a little differently, and I'm gonna fill those in with some different designs like loopy meanders, big swirls, and then maybe some flowers. Even though the quilting is less dense than I did previously, it's still gonna have that beautiful interest in the background, and it's still gonna look great on your quilts. So don't feel like you have to quilt everything to death like I do to get the same result with your quilts. And for even more complex quilting, for more of a challenge, you can combine both ideas in the same area, filling in that background with designs that transition from one to the next that also change in scale as you fill it in. It's definitely a lot to keep track of, but it's well worth the effort. Another way that you can use a change of scale in the background areas is to intentionally place larger designs to create a pattern. For instance, if I'm quilting pebbles around the whole block, by having some bigger that kind of work their way around here, draws attention to that block, gives it a nice framing look, and actually is a little bit easier than quilting smaller pebbles over the whole thing. You can either wing it as you go, putting in those bigger designs where you feel led to put them, or for more precise placement, you can mark them out beforehand. For instance, if I want to fill in this area with paisleys, I'm going to just mark out a couple of the bigger ones so they kind of guide your eye along the side of the blocks. And remember, there's no right or wrong way to do this, just do whatever you think looks good. Then I'm going to begin filling in that area, quilting my bigger paisleys, then using the smaller paisleys to fill in the rest of the area and help me transition to the next big one. I'm going to repeat that until the whole area is filled in. I just love how you can take one design and use it in different sizes on your background area and get a really cool effect. This means that you don't have to learn 500 different designs to have some really cool quilting on your quilts. Another option you have is, instead of quilting bigger ones so that they're intentionally placed around smaller ones, I can mix up those different size designs to give it a completely different look. For instance, here I have some bigger pebbles and some smaller pebbles, and I like how it adds a beautiful texture, but it doesn't take quite as long as quilting smaller pebbles over the whole quilt. Changing up the scale of a quilting design is such a fun way to add some pizzazz with your quilting. Whether you go for a gradual change in scale or mix it up with some intentional placement, it's the perfect technique for highlighting the blocks of your quilts. And now it's your turn. If you're quilting along with me on the custom panel I designed for this video series, go ahead and fill in the area highlighted in red with the designs of your choice. You can use one of the design examples we learned in this video, or come up with your own variations. And as always, I've put together some free quilting diagrams and tips so that you can be successful with the designs that we've learned. But if you need a little bit more help or want a little bit more design inspiration, check out my expanded resource PDF. For just a few dollars, you get even more quilting samples, even more step-by-step diagrams, and even more tips. It's the perfect way to make sure you're successful with the designs that we're learning. To find out more about those, or to get the exclusive products I've used in the video, just click the link in the description box below, or visit quiltingismytherapy.com. And I'm going to be back soon with the next video in the series, where we're going to learn how to use quilting designs to create some cool secondary patterns in the background areas of our quilts. I can't wait. Until then, everybody, happy quilting.